So you are building a business, or you're thinking about building a business. So today I'm going to be speaking about my experiences, my thoughts, my feelings on how to know if you're on the right path in terms of if the business is a good fit for you, and some things which may be helpful in terms of moving you to a direction where it's more comfortable, it's as practical and as easy as it can be to create a business which suits you and your personality, your character, and just generally giving a little bit of an insight as to my experiences of spending the best part of 13 years at this point building unsuccessful businesses and pivoting, changing my mind, and generally becoming much more aware of the types of things which a business for me needs. But more importantly for you, it's going to be letting you have an insight as to the way that I've come to realize those things, and just generally get a much better picture on the important staples which go into figuring out if this type of business works for you, or more practically, the tactics and the points that you should reflect on in order to make sure that you're on the right path for you. All right, because as I said, 13 years of trying to figure this out, and I'm finally at a place where I am building a business which I feel good while building it. That's a very important thing, because I think if you can get to a place where you enjoy the process of building your business and it's exciting, you will make that business work, because you'll keep working on the business until the business works, if that makes sense, rather than focusing like solely on the outcome of the money. You need to focus on the process of building the business, and then the money will follow, if that makes sense. So you'll like my really cool glasses for reading some notes that I've got, because I do like to be very prepared. So I think the very first thing that I've realized in terms of building an actual business is the process is much more important than the outcome. If you have to force yourself on a big level to actually move that over there so I can see both of those at the same time, because we live in the 21st century, and I can. There we go, much better. So there are going to be times on your journey of building your business where it's tough, it's difficult, it sucks. You're having to do the same thing again and again. There's going to be elements to creating your business that you do not give a shit about. But you just have to accept that that's a part of the game. That's not what I'm talking about when I say you don't enjoy it. What I mean by that is if the practical nature of sitting down and the thought of doing the work as an overall is depressive, it's constricting, it's restrictive, it drains your energy as soon as you've sat down. You find yourself procrastinating, and you make excuses, and you're not being pulled towards it, then I'd say the nature of the business that you're trying to build, or the way in which you're going about trying to build it, is not for you. So that's a very important thing that I would say first of all, is if you don't have any interest whatsoever in, let's say for example, you really want to build, I don't know, I'll use me for example. I'm into philosophy, I'm into health, I'm into conversations, I enjoy exercise, strength and conditioning, the meaning of life, I enjoy tactics and reflections. So that's why I'm building my business on all of that. That's why I'm a content creator that is looking to have podcasts, have shows that discuss all of these kind of things, because even though like the editing and writing video descriptions and doing all the uploading stuff and researching into like how to break up podcasts into clips and then thumbnails, all of that shit doesn't interest me in any way, shape or form. But that's the work that I do that I don't enjoy, within the overall greater concept of the business, which I do enjoy because of the nature of it. All right. So take, for example, if you really want to have like a brick and mortar business that's in person, and you just have an absolute fascination with buildings, it would make sense for you to learn how to become a builder. You know, if you absolutely love being outside and you just love nature, it would make sense for you to be a gardener. You might not enjoy the bit of marketing, or you might not enjoy the driving between jobs. You might not enjoy having to go to your local shop and, you know, have to decide between this, and this. That's the small bits within the business that you don't enjoy, but you enjoy the overall greater concept. So I think that's a very important thing to remember. And if you are in the process of building your business and you're sat and you're thinking, well, fucking hell, actually, you know what? I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like this, and I don't like this, but I do enjoy that part. Think about what you can do with the bit that you do know that you enjoy and how you can expand on that, because that's been my personal reflection is, what's something that you just enjoy naturally that you can expand upon. All right, so just another couple of ways. If you're not, like for me, today's Sunday on the day of filming this, and I've worked all week and I'm working all of next week apart from one day. I'm spending today making notes, filming. I've got about 7 Word documents open because I'm in the very early stages of trying to hash out where everything's going to go. And I want to do this. It's a very enjoyable process. It's expansive. I have loads of ideas, and I can tell that this is something that I want to do on my day off, which is a good sign. All right. Also, another way to know that you are doing something that's really fulfilling for you is that you end up in flow states. All right. Now, flow states are something that I absolutely love because it's one of those things where you can end up doing quite a large volume of very practical, precise, and productive work without really realizing how much time's going by. So again, if you're not in the phase of knowing what you want to do, a good starting point is, what do you find easy? Like the gardening example. If you realize that you can just spend a long time in the garden and you really enjoy being in nature, then think about what you can do within that world. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to become a gardener. You could become somebody who, when you want to film, you film outdoors, or as like completely thinking about it in another way, you could fill your office with plants because it allows you to feel like you're in an environment that brings you joy. It might be that you have to make sure that you go for a walk every day in nature for 10, 20 minutes, and then that brings you a sense of peace, so that then you can then go and do the business, which might be, I don't know, you're an air conditioning salesman, or you're an engineer and you want to work for yourself. But going into nature for 20 minutes a day just brings you this sense of peace that allows you to then go and do the business that you've already got. So it's not just thinking in one dimension. You know, you've got to open yourself up. If you want to be a creative, if you want to be a business owner, if you want to start and change your passions and your hobbies into a business, you have to think about these ways of putting yourself in the best environments that you can, so that it makes the work that you have to do feel as easy as possible, you know? So, yeah, I think the next thing is don't be stuck on one way of doing things. If you're trying to achieve something, if you're trying to make videos, or you're trying to make your sales, or you are just in that stage of trying to figure out what you actually want to do, it's really important to be open to new ways of doing things, especially if what you're doing at the minute isn't working. All right, so it can be difficult, and you start again looking at psychology of, you know, being defensive and not wanting to be open to criticism, and generally feeling like, well, this is the way that I've done it, so this is the way that it will be done. You need to get rid of that shit. You need to start and speak to a therapist or read some books on on why you've got that sort of attitude towards being open to new things, because the most important stuff that you'll learn is the stuff that you don't know. That's why you need to learn it. So you've got to be open to new things. Okay, so I think going to the opposite end of the spectrum is, when do you know that something isn't right? Because sometimes as you're going through the process of trying out this, and you've got this hobby that you try and make a business out of, or you've got a friend who's really successful so you want to emulate them, or this seems like a really easy way of making money, so I'm going to sit down and try and do this for 2 years. And you keep running into these stumbling blocks. So when do you know that what you're doing isn't right for you? And I think that the most important thing is you will feel it in your stomach. It'll be a visceral, like I said earlier, a visceral feeling of unhappiness, of you feel depressed, you feel constricted, you feel drained at the thought of even going into that type of work. I think if you've got anything to do with that, then you need to reflect, you need to journal, you need to be mindful of what the feelings within your body are, because again, business can sometimes live up here. We can think, we can strategize, we want tactics, we want practical ways of doing things. We've got income versus outcome. We've got cash flow, profits, and it's very head heavy. Business can be very head heavy. But if you've got a business which makes sense up here, but down here you feel like shit, you're depressed, you're eating bad food, you're just unhappy, every time you sat down to do an hour of work, you need 3 hours to recover from it. There's a gap here, and if something feels good down here and it makes sense up there, that's when your business works, because you're willing to put the time in and you've got the energy to do it. All right. So I think the main thing is if it just feels wrong, if you feel tired. The other stuff as well is, like, if you can just see that the business isn't working, like the market's on, if you're trying to sell a product that there's no use for, if you're like an inventor and you're trying to figure something out and it's just not working, sometimes it's a very personal thing, but sometimes you just need to let go of a bad idea. And again, it goes back to that whole letting go, being open to new things. It's this different side of the same coin. So evidence is a big one, evidence, and over the long term, not just in the moment, because it's really easy sometimes to have a bad day, and it's normally the day that you're doing the work that you didn't really want to do, but you had to do it. Don't pack it in on those days. It's that thing of never make an emotional phone call while you're in that emotional state. Have a good night's sleep, have a break from it, and then if you still feel that way after a break, you've had a reset, you've tried things a different way, and the evidence is telling you that it's not working, then it's time to pivot or to change what you're doing. So if you're in a situation where you've kind of figured out what you want to do, you're in the middle of a sticky situation, you're working through the trenches, you're working through a tough patch, you've had a setback, you've had to pivot so that all the progress that you made in this way has now moved over there, but it's shrunk, so now you have to start and make the progress again. What are some things that can revitalize that energy? What can you do to sort of give yourself that fun, that playfulness, that excitement, that expansiveness back again? Because again, after 13 years of trying many, many things, I've gotten a lot of experience of how to make a very boring, unfulfilled task seem a lot better than it is, again, because I was focusing on the outcome rather than focusing on the process. Thankfully, that's allowed me to learn a lot about how to enjoy the process, so I can hopefully share and stop you guys from having to do 13 years of that before you find something that actually feels good. So like I said earlier, like going for a walk, just generally doing some kind of exercise. Obviously, I'm going to start and talk about this kind of stuff because it's me. Movement is good. That's why I film stood up, because I'm moving around. I'm constantly, let me just move it over here so you can see a little bit more. Like when I'm over here, I'm like moving around, I'm scratching my leg, like I don't feel restricted, because I've learned that when I'm filming, if I'm sat down, I don't feel like me. So it makes the process of, because this is my version of work, sitting making notes, filming, trying to make sure that I don't blabber on about shit that's irrelevant, is my version of work. So this is me making sure that I'm in an environment when I do my work which suits my personality. That's why I talk about reflection and taking time for yourself, and having to understand that there's multiple things which go into creating that business. You know, you've got your psychology, your friends, your working environment, your social environment, you know, the job that you've currently got to support the income requirements that you've got in terms of like, I need to buy this and I need to buy that, and you know, I've got bills I need to pay for food, the house that I live in, you know, it all ties in. Time management, energy levels, nutrition, sleep. You know, if your nutrition's bad, you're not sleeping right, you hate your partner, and your job's just absolutely crucifying you, do you really think that you're putting yourself in the optimal position to be able to build a business? No, you're just not. And again, experience has shown me that. And yeah, you just don't need to learn that lesson for as long as what you might be learning it. So figuring out ways that you can enjoy that. So some practical things that in terms of that is, you know, small things like, can you do a stand-up desk? Can you have, you can't see now, but there's a window there, and if I do that, it's darker. If I do that, it's brighter. So just making these small changes can make it feel like a nicer environment. Also on that, like, can you concentrate? Do you work in an environment which distracts you a lot? Because again, the energy required to bring yourself back to focus on a task over and over and over again is draining. All right, so again, feeds back into that energy, keeping the energy that we've got. Also, I think the argument can be made in terms of like, are you working out of being inspired, or are you working because you feel desperate? Is there scarcity? Are you working to try and achieve as much money as possible, and you're frantically running around doing 12 things at once and never completing it because you're always looking for the easy thing? You're always looking for the thing that you think will give you the outcome, rather than being able to work on the process because you enjoy it, you're focused on the outcome. So just being aware of that kind of stuff, which side of the fence are you coming from? And generally speaking, I tend to get my ass in gear and make big decisions better from a self-imposed feeling of desperation. So that's not, I hate my job, I don't like where I live, I need to make as much money as possible. That's a thing of like, you know that you can do better, and you deserve to give yourself the same amount of energy as what you give the job that can replace you pretty easy, you know? So I think that's a really important one in terms of just knowing where you're at, and then being able to potentially make a tweak in terms of the way that you perceive the work that you're doing. And obviously, like, just having a better psychology and a better emotional state is obviously just going to make things so much easier. You know, if you've not got 12,000 things spinning around your head every day, you can focus easier. And that comes from, you know, exercise, mindfulness, rest, not waking up and flicking on your phone for 15 minutes and then trying to think about one task, because your brain's flicking, flick, next, change, and then you're trying to sit down and be calm and focused. It's important about that type of thing, about, you know, environment. What do you do before the work to prime yourself to get ready to do the work? Time of day, you know, I'm doing this, what time is it now? It's 11 a.m. I've already, what have I done this morning? I've hydrated with like salt water and coconut water, proper salt, not shit table salt. I have gone for a walk in nature, about 20-25 minute walk. Me and my partner's had a really good, insightful conversation about a lot of different things this morning. So my relationship's really good because she's calm, she's gone to work. I've waited until she's gone to work so that I've got the house to myself. I've got an environment where I can work, and then I've done some notes. I've got myself in the zone. I know what I want to talk about. I'm prepared. I've got the notes right here, and then it's a flow state. You know, you've got to be practical about it as well. So, and I kind of, the last thing that I want to go into, but I think it's by no means the last. I actually think this is one of the most important things, but I left it while last because it's going to allow me to tie in a few of the things that I've already spoken about, is other areas that you might not potentially realize that are affecting your ability to make progress within your business. Because I feel like at this point, we've discussed about how to know if you're on the right path. We've discussed about trying new things and being open to new experiences and not just thinking about one is one. Sometimes one is a 0.5 plus a 0.2 plus a 0.3, and then you get to your whole. In terms of maybe sometimes you can make a business out of, what was the example I used? Gardening, or using plants in the office to make the businesses that you want to make work in a more enjoyable way. So you need to be open, you need to try new things. If you don't know what you want to do, go out and fucking have a go. That's why work experience is really good, and working in different industries has been super helpful for me. Like, I think I counted up once, and like, I'm 28 now, turning 29 in a few months. I've been working since I was 16. I left school and went straight into work. Well, I left school, went to sixth form for 6 weeks. I hated it. It was just like being at school. Left and then started working full time, and then I've worked pretty much full time all the way through. But I take like a month here, a couple of weeks there. 6 months I took once when I was about 24 to just exist and chill. And if I'm being honest, partake in a lot of extracurricular activities which aren't constructive. But again, it was life experience. Through all those experiences, I worked in a lot of different industries, in a lot of different positions. Like, I've done everything from cleaning toilets and moving bricks around to being manager of a sales team. Worked my way up from a general salesman to like a helper within training. Did a lot of coaching. I've worked in supermarkets, I've worked in factories, I've worked in warehouses. I'm now a full-time driver for like buses and coaches. I've worked in food industries, I've worked in restaurants. What else have I done? I think that's about it. But through all of those positions, being in managing, coaching, being at the bottom of the pecking order, cleaning toilets, I've worked in a lot of different environments with a lot of different people, and the experiences that I've had, and all while doing that, I've been trying to build different businesses as well. So I've got a lot of work experience, and what that means is that I've had a lot of opportunities to see what I like, what I don't like, the way that I want my business to be run, what kind of culture do I want. And when I'm ready to start and employ people, I've already got a very good insight into all of that. So if you're sat here and you're like 15, if you're 16, if you're 21, and you're very new to all this, you've just come out of uni, or you've just come out of school, or you've only ever had one job, and you just don't know what you want to do, my best advice would be to go and get a job in a world where you think you might enjoy working, and then you've got more experience. Experience is absolutely king. So yeah, go and get some experience. So I think, going back to my original point in terms of like other areas which may affect your business, because again, feeding back to feedback, you've figured out what you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, go and figure it out. So you've come back to the video because you know what you want to do. How do we make the business that you want to build more enjoyable? So I think the couple of ones that are super important is like your emotional state. Generally speaking, happier people are more efficient. If you're not weighed down, and I'm gonna just go over this in a general sense, but I don't think that these topics are very light whatsoever. I've suffered a lot with these topics and these subjects, so I'm not saying them in a light and breezy way to make them seem like they're light and breezy, but this isn't the topic of the conversation. So if you're struggling with anxiety, if you're absolutely fucking ruined by depression, if you can't get out of fucking bed because you feel awful and all the things that come with that, if you're struggling with addictions to any number of substances, behaviours, activities, fill the blank in. If you are in a horrific relationship, or you're living in a household where you don't feel like you can express yourself, all of those things will just hinder the progress that you can make in your business so much. So my advice to anybody that's watching this video that can resonate with any of that is to fix that stuff, is to heal that stuff, is to do a little bit of work, put yourself in a better environment, get a different job, leave your fucking partner, move out of the house, you know, make the decision that you know that you need to fucking make. And then when things have settled, come back to this whole business thing, because it's almost fucking impossible to do both. Again, personal experience. So yeah, address the emotional stuff that's going on, the psychological stuff that's going on, because without addressing that, you're fighting an uphill battle against yourself, and that's really not an easy thing to do. I think the next thing is it's always good to take a break and recharge your batteries. If you've been slogging it out for a month, 6 months, fucking 5 years, take a fucking breath, alright? Take a drink of water. The world will still be here. And if you're building your business in the right way, in an industry that's actually going to last longer than 5 seconds, people won't miss you for a week, alright? Even the best CEOs in the world go on holiday a lot, you'd be surprised. So yeah, relax a little bit, don't stress yourself out. And I think that's another thing as well, like one big thing for me that was a massive shift. Well, I've got a nose hair or something, I don't know what it is, but it's tickling me really bad. One thing that was super important for me was to think about my business as a hobby. And I know a lot of people are like, that's really counterintuitive. But for me, as soon as I start to think about my business as a business, I get stressed. I get like, oh, I've not got an income yet, and I start to really hate my job just because I see it as like, it's a thing of like my job versus my business. Whereas now I see it as my job is actually amazing because it supports my hobby, and I love my hobby. I want to do it every day. I want to not go to work to do my hobby, but that's not practical. Life experience. So I think sometimes just having, again, it goes back to being aware, self-aware, how you work, psychology, emotions. It's understanding how you work in terms of like the way to frame it to yourself, because some people might think of a hobby and relax. They might not put as much effort into it. They might never get round to it. Whereas for me, I love my hobbies so much, I want to do them all the time, but a business is a little bit stressful. So that was just a really important thing for me that allows me now to come at it with ease, with relaxation, but I'm still excited and I'm very passionate about it, and I've got a lot of energy that I want to put into it. Breaking things up into bite-sized chunks and being practical and organized. I think that having a plan for the week as a general outline and being flexible on when you can do those chunks of work helps. You don't want to be so rigid in your routine that if you stray outside of it, again, it causes stress, emotional stuff, energy drops. If you are so relaxed that you never get round to doing any work and you procrastinate and you just never actually put anything in a diary and you don't have the discipline to follow through on it, then you're never going to build a business. So it's finding that sweet spot for you that works. So for me, for example, I like to get an idea of what I want to do. So I'll take you on a bigger sort of picture. So for me, I have an overall view of the types of content that I want to make. I have 3 or 4 main types of content that I create, and each week my plan is to hit at least 2 to 3 of those. So I'm going to be making 2 or 3 videos a week, longer videos. Break those down into little like YouTube shorts and Instagram and TikTok and all that blah 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 stuff. Again, you can tell that I don't really care about that, but I put it in my diary and I put it in my calendar so that it fits around with my full-time job. And then when it comes time to do it, I do it. And if I can only do half of it, that's fine, because I know that doing half of it, the next time I come back to being in work mode in terms of like my hobby, I'll just pick up where I left off. If I don't have it in my calendar, it won't get done. If I don't have a list of ideas to pick from, I'll constantly just think of ideas and I'll never actually do it. Whereas if I write all my ideas down and then I just at random pick one out and say, right, the next time I've got a couple of hours, I'm going to do a video on that and I'm going to do a video on that. And when that time comes that's in my calendar, I've already got it selected. So I end up with a week of work, training, sauna, exercise in terms of like movement, getting outside, doing my day job and having to do the commute and all that type of stuff, it's all put into a schedule, but there's breathing space in between it, so I don't get overwhelmed. It's broken down into record a video, and that's it. And then I'll go and do some stuff, I'll have some food, I'll go to the gym, I'll come back and I'll edit it, I'll write the description, and I'll upload it. Rather than trying to do everything all in one chunk and getting overwhelmed, again, I've realised for me personally that I need to be very practical, I need to be organised, I need to know when it's going to be done, and that needs to fit around what the other stuff I've got to do in my life. Because, you know, even though I don't have kids, I still have responsibilities, I still have to go to a job. Like, my average work week without doing any overtime from leaving my door to getting back home is between 55 to 60 hours a week. I also train 3 or 4 times a week. I also go to the sauna 3 or 4 times a week. Between me and my partner, we do meal preps, we make healthy pancakes, and we make healthy muffins and healthy brownies. So again, I don't indulge in the bad food as much. I have a rough sleep time, as in, like, I go to bed at a certain time so that I can wake up at a certain time, so that I'm rested, so that I can go for a walk before I sit down all day at my job. And it's all methodically and practically put into a system so that I don't have to wake up every day and make these decisions. Like, as an example, my bag that I go to the sauna with is here. As soon as I get home, it gets put to dry from the sauna, and it normally takes all night for it to dry because we don't have the heating on all night because I sleep hot. I don't want the heating on while I sleep. So it takes all night to dry. When I wake up in the morning and it's dried, it goes inside the sauna bag so that when I want it, it's done. It minimises the amount of decisions that you have to make at the start of the day, which I think is just a really important thing. But yeah, I think breaking things up into manageable chunks, and again, experimenting with what works. I like to do my focused task, my creative stuff that takes brain power as soon as I can, as early as I can. So I actually changed my hours at work twice over the past year, quite big changes, in order to experiment with what works in terms of sleeping times, eating times, training times, working on my hobby times. And it's again flexible. You've got to have an open mind, you've got to have a different approach, you've got to try different things. So the big take home that I think I'm sort of coming to now, because again I'm trying not to talk too much, is make sure that you're on the right path. If things aren't working right, reevaluate. If there's small little things that are annoying, just get over it and do the work. If you're trying to figure out what you want to do and you don't know what you want to do, experiment, explore, go out and try different jobs. Start making videos on this, start and garden, start and go to your local strength and conditioning clubs or coaching clubs and get an idea of what it's like to be a coach, or go and work as a labourer on a building site if you want to be a builder. If you want to be an architect, do you even like fucking drawing buildings? Just start to think about what you want to do and how can I experiment and taste what that could be like. Once you've got that, it's being practical. It's about knowing yourself. It's about having space to reflect on things that have worked well and not worked well. Keep a journal, keep a diary. One of the reasons why I do my weekly videos is so that I can look back on what's the last week, what's the week before that, what's the week before that. Can I see a pattern? It's constantly trying to reevaluate what works well, and then balancing that with time out. Take rest. Don't do a fucking video for a year because you wanted to try something else. So yeah, that's it for today. You've had half an hour, 35 minutes of me going on about this type of stuff, but as you can see, it's something that I'm passionate about. It's something that I feel very fulfilled when I do it, and I don't feel like I'm drained. Like, after this, I don't feel like I've been sat doing work for 35 minutes, plus the hour of notes that I spent doing and sorting out and organising beforehand. I feel like it's a breeze, and I'm very, very grateful that I'm here, but it's taken me 13 years. Let me just say that again for anybody who's feeling a little bit impatient. 13 years it's taken me to get to a point where I can even say that I enjoy the process. I've only just started, and I'm 13 years deep of experimenting. But I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm calm, I'm grateful, I'm patient, I'm enjoying my life at the same time. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what all this is about, you know? Nobody wants to be a rich, depressed, cynical person, you know? I'd rather have a little bit less money, but I've enjoyed the process of getting there, and I've made some cool friends. And then the money will come anyway, you know? So yeah, that's it for today. I really truly wish you well on the journey of figuring out what you want to do. If you know what you want to do, just try and tweak how to get there, and ultimately you'll be on the right path. Thank you very much for your time.